aspects of the 16-10 loss by the Baltimore Ravens to the Washington Redskins on Sunday. And, of course, if you've watched baseball over the weekend, you know this guy watches baseball as well. Out on Twitter, he is Baltimore Luke, as well as Luke at WNST.net. Together, we were at the stadium in the locker room after the game, and then, watching the Toronto Blue Jays make their way to the American League Championship Series. Luke, it's not without drama, right? Whether it's the Terps getting walloped over the weekend or the Ravens sort of turtling up in the end. It's been a really, really active week here. Very active October, man.
Yeah, and a really frustrating weekend. And you just mentioned Toronto. How about the fact that the Orioles, how close they came to beating Toronto in the wild card game, and Toronto goes on and sweeps Texas. So, I mean, that just...
rather easily, too. It looked like taking candy from a baby, right?
Oh, yeah. So it's just one of those things where you say, okay, you scratch one more run across the board over the first 10 innings of that game, first 11 innings. Zach Britton pitches, and you're probably moving on then. But that aside, baseball's over, at least here. We'll continue to watch the playoffs, but very frustrating weekend for the Ravens. There's no doubt about it. We talked at length about the offensive struggles, the special team struggles, the defense playing well overall. I think, I think that group's not getting enough credit for the way that they've played. But they clearly had their issues in the secondary in the third quarter. So, it really was the kind of performance that you come away, not all the good vibes of that 3-0 start feel like they're all but gone. And on top of that, now dealing with some injuries. And we'll see what John Harbaugh has to say in his Monday press conference and how their status might change over the next few days. But certainly, adding, I guess, injury to insult in that case, and just makes Sunday that much more frustrating for the Ravens.
Aspects and dissecting the 16-10 very, very unfortunate loss to the Washington Redskins that guys like me are going to have to chew on for the next 4 years or the next 8 years coming back to Baltimore. And, so many things we talked about here, Luke, that didn't work. Things that, in the end, defense didn't give up a lot of points. Special teams gave up points. Offense couldn't create points. Certainly ran the ball, gave up running the ball. But I guess the question now with the New York Giants looming and the Jets looming and our bus trip to the Giants looming, where are we on the injury side of things? And what are we waiting for to get better here? I mean, obviously, Ronnie Stanley's a big, big part of what they're trying to do here, man.
Yeah, he is, and I thought they had some success running to the left side of the offensive line, but, I mean, it's clear they need to get Stanley back. Rick Wagner leaves after halftime with the thigh issues, so they kicked Marshall Yanda out to right tackle. They bring Ryan Jensen in at right guard. You had a starting offensive line in the second half on Sunday that had one guy playing his original positions, Jeremy Zuda at center. So, I mean, you look at that, Mosley had the hamstring issue. He's going to undergo an MRI. So, you keep your fingers crossed that that's not anything significant to the point where he's out multiple weeks. Steve Smith dealing with a sprained ankle. I don't think that one is overly serious, but you wonder what that means for him, at least in the short term. And Sheldon Price, who was starting in place of Sharice Wright, who was deactivated on Sunday, and the Ravens said that he'd been dealing with some back spasms, which I'm a little skeptical of that, considering he wasn't on the injury report. And if he wasn't on the injury report and he was hurt, then
was he playing that badly to get benched? I mean, I know it wasn't the greatest effort the week before, but
he's been pretty bad since week one. I mean, week one he played really well.
Well, he tackled a lot in week one. We saw him around the ball.
But go back and look at basically every touchdown they'd given up over the previous 3 weeks, and he was right in the middle of.
Well, they're not picking on Jimmy Smith. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right?
Right. And look, I'm not saying clearly their defense was still, ranked where they were, even with him starting. I mean, they entered this game first in total defense, third in pass defense, so he couldn't have been that bad. But clearly he had been struggling. So, how much of it is related to the back, how much of it performance, who knows? But, these are just, injuries are mounting. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And as much as we've beaten up Mark Trestman, and I think a lot of it is absolutely deserved, you still do look at that offensive line and say, man, that really makes things difficult. Even if you are playing a bottom five statistical defense like the Ravens were on Sunday, but they need to get healthy. I mean, this is a critical stretch for them. You mentioned the fact they're going up to Jersey to play the Giants, who are in the midst of their own 3-game losing streak in their case. Both these teams, their season, not that it's on the brink that a loss means that they're out of it, but it certainly puts them behind the 8 ball. And knowing the Ravens go right back up there to face the Jets, who have certainly struggled, there's no doubt about that. But back-to-back road games before the bye. We've talked about the fact that this team would really like to be 5-2 to be in a good position for the second half of the season after the bye week. You got to, in order to do that, you got to have both these games now. And if you're not going to have some of these players on the field, it's going to make things that much more difficult. So, as much as they were excited to get Kenneth Dixon back, who barely even played, I think had all but had 4 snaps that he played in that one against the Redskins. But they've got some other guys out right now, and not really sure what their status is going to be until we get a little bit later into the week.
Yeah, man, this was it wasn't like a body bag game, but they certainly started losing some players at a decent clip here with Wagner and Smith going off the field. And in the framework of the offense and trying to run the football, I don't know what gets said in these meeting rooms during the week, because clearly, and I talked to Brian Billick about this, the game plan wasn't to throw at 50 and run at 20, right? That's never the game plan here.
Well, and that's what makes it so perplexing, because they came out and they ran it 11 times in the first quarter, and they averaged 6.7 yards per carry. You can't ask for better than that, I guess, other than Jamal Lewis against the Browns in 2003 when he ran for a 295. You can't ask for better than that, and then they just get away from it. I'll be totally honest with you, and this is going back to last year. And we talked about this quite a bit last year. As I wrote at WNST.net in my piece talking about the coaching errors, the coaching mishaps on Sunday, and how I don't think the Ravens are good enough as a team to overcome that kind of stuff when you're playing these close games. But I felt last year Mark Trestman absolutely deserved a pass. You had a team that did not have a whole lot of speed at the speed position or at the skill positions, and you had a roster that over the final 2 months looked like a preseason kind of group. It was clear yet you didn't know who was playing quarterback, you didn't know who was playing receiver, etc. So I understood that. To me, it was really unfair to try to harshly critique Mark Trestman based on his first year, knowing that you were without Joe Flacco for the final 6 games and without Steve Smith for half the season, without Brashad Perriman, who was the replacement to Torrey Smith for the entire season, without Justin Forsett. You go down the list, but at the same time, there were red flags there. We talked about the running game, whether it was a lack of productivity or a lack of commitment. We talked about how the passing game seemed very disjointed, that there was no real rhyme or reason to it. So those red flags were there, and 5 weeks into his second season, those same exact red flags are there. Now, to their credit, they got the running game going the last couple weeks, but the commitment's still not there. I see an offense that uses any excuse possible it can find to go away from the running game.
Well, it feels like Steve Smith was their mismatch, right? On any third down, either Smith or Pitta, depending on, off the line of scrimmage, that's what they've been employing the first quarter of the season, which is, all right, it's 3rd and 6, we need a first down, we're going to throw it. Let's put Pitta on the right side, Smith on the left side, match him up on the nickel or on the dime, and, just try to move the sticks. That's what this passing game has been. It really hasn't been about finding Mike Wallace or Brashad Perriman down the field so much, right?
Well, and that's a problem because, at the same time, if you don't have Steve Smith on the field, then where's Kamar Aiken? Last year he played really well when Steve Smith went down. And, yeah, I get it. This team was out of it. They weren't playing high-stakes kind of football games, but they were also going up against a bad defense on Sunday. So I hear what you're saying on that. And, look, Steve Smith's clearly still an important part of what they do, but does that mean they should completely fall apart as an offense when he exits late in the first quarter? That's a problem. That's a colossal problem, either in talent or scheme or both. So, it's just it's inexplicable to me that you can have that kind of a first quarter that the Ravens had and then kick the field goal to begin the second quarter, and then you're shut out the rest of the way. They're shut out over the final 44 minutes of that football game, playing at home, playing against a team that entered the game ranked 29th in total defense. It doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. That's where the excuses run thin about, well, we need more plays, we're going to run the ball. Well, the only plays that you ran with any success whatsoever were running the ball. Their two longest plays from scrimmage on Sunday were Terrence West runs. In contrast, Joe Flacco didn't have a completion of longer than 15 yards. I mean, that's a major problem, especially when you're talking about a quarterback who dropped back to throw 50 times.
Well, that's how you score 10 points, right? Yeah. I mean, they scored 10 points.
So if it truly is a case where if Washington, and I don't think this was the case, I think the Ravens just went away from it because that's what Mark Trestman does, quite frankly, that if Washington truly did things to take away the running game, then this passing game is hopelessly broken if it can't take advantage of it then. If they're selling out to stop the run, how you don't take deep shots and be more aggressive in the passing game, I don't know. You'll have to explain that to me like I'm a 5-year-old, I guess, because, I don't get football then. But, you don't have to get football to look at the stats and say something is horribly wrong with this Ravens offense right now.
He is Luke Jones. He'll be on the backfields at Owings Mills all week. We still have some space on our New York Giants bus this week. We also have C.J. Mosley joining us on Tuesday night at Buffalo Wild Wings at Owings Mills for the Bone Marrow Reds. Just one show. We don't do a lot of shows out there. We do Monday night every Monday night for our best seat in the house as well as our wing eating competition. And you can join us for that as well. The Kenneth Dixon thing and the Terrence West thing and really the Buck Allen thing that we've been hearing about for a year and a half. Buck touched the ball a couple times, did okay. Terrence West probably didn't touch the ball enough, as we've pointed out. And then there's Kenneth Dixon, who they're trying to get on the field, and the soon-to-be quickly forgotten Justin Forsett, right, whose name we won't be mentioning anymore, right?
Right. I mean, the youth movement's here. This team is going with 3 young running backs. I mean, they used all 3 of them in the first quarter. It was fun to watch. Certainly Terrence West had the most production, but Buck Allen had 3 carries for 15 yards in the first quarter. Dixon, they got the ball to him 3 times, and not much success there. There's no way to sugarcoat it. But at the same time, this is his first NFL action. He's coming back from a fairly significant knee injury that he suffered in late August.
Man, knee injury for a running back's big. That's a BFD. Yeah. That's huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting him to run for 75 yards and to catch passes for 50, 4 passes for 40 yards. I mean, I expected him to be eased in there. Now, I thought he'd get more than 4 snaps. I thought Buck Allen would get more than 9 snaps. Heck, I thought Terrence West would get more than 31 of the 71 snaps. I mean, that's where I kind of talk about the problem right now. If you were going to move on from Justin Forsett, we're seeing Kyle Juszczyk being used as a single back in pass protection, which he's very good in pass protection, and they've gotten him, to their credit, they've gotten him involved more as a receiver, but it feels like it makes you really, really predictable, and maybe that's a no-duh kind of statement when you're throwing the ball 50 times a game, as the Ravens have averaged the last couple weeks, but you just, when you don't even have a running back on the field, I mean, it takes away any mystery of what you're trying to do offensively. So, that's just another layer to the problem. But, in terms of how those 3, how the carries are balanced out and everything, it's exciting to see. I mean, clearly Terrence West is the guy for now. As much as we've talked about Kenneth Dixon, he's going to have to beat out West. I mean, Terrence West is averaging 5 yards per carry now on the season. I mean, it's been really, really good when they've given him the ball. I continue to be baffled why they don't give him the ball more.
He is Luke Jones. We're talking some football here, and, of course, around the league on Sunday, some surprises, right? I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals are struggling now, right? I mean, we can officially say they're on the struggle, and the Dallas Cowboys look real, and the Minnesota Vikings look very real, and the Pittsburgh Steelers look very real, and we'll see them in 3 weeks in the next home game. It's weird, Luke, right? We won. It's been a month since we won a home game. It'll be a month before we play another home game, right? And they're still above 500, and can certainly do some good things against the Giants team that struggled on Sunday night. We all saw that against Green Bay. They're on a little bit of a shorter rest coming home as well. And the Jets just got annihilated by the Steelers. So it's not like the Ravens had these buzzsaws waiting for them on the road. But that being said, they got to prepare. They got to get healthier. They got to do things well. They got to get on a train. They got to go to New York the next 2 weekends and win.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And you mentioned the division. I mean, Cincinnati, I mean, we kind of talked about the fact that was a challenging early schedule for them, and keep in mind the Bengals go to Foxborough next week, so I mean they might be staring at 2-4 firmly.
And by the
in
way,
face
New
at this
England
point.
has Cincinnati and Pittsburgh in back-to-back weeks, and we don't look at it like, whoa, Patriots are going to have a tough time. We look at it like, whoa, death to the Steelers and the Bengals, right?
Well, yeah, maybe. That Pittsburgh New England game should be really, really good. I mean, at this point, Cincinnati. I mean, you look at the Bengals; their offense has just really struggled. I mean, keep in mind they lost Sanu, they lost Marvin Jones, and I think you look at them as much as we've talked about the Ravens' struggles offensively. Bengals have scored 2 fewer points than the Ravens have in the same number of games.
Well, you start taking your Anquan Boldens and your Torrey Smiths away from Joe Flacco, it certainly changed things around here, right?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't always take much. You just take away 1 or 2 players, and you have young guys that aren't quite ready to step up and fill that void, and you see how things can fall apart very quickly. So, I'm not burying the Bengals at this point, but I mean, they're in a tough stretch now. I mean. They play New England, then they'll come home, they'll get the Browns, and they'll play Washington. So that could be 2 wins there for them to get back into it. But right now, the way it's looking, and the Ravens, mathematically speaking, are only a game behind Pittsburgh. But I hate to say it, the Steelers look like the class of this division so far. I mean, the total head-scratching, baffling blowout loss to Philadelphia aside, they've looked really good in their other games. So right now, Cincinnati. Really, kind of searching right now in a way not completely different from the Ravens, but offensive struggles very similar.
That final score was not indicative, man. It was 28-0. They were getting their ass kicked, really.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of that.
Yeah, you mentioned Dallas. I mean, how about Dak Prescott? I mean, I continue to hear about Tony Romo. If I'm a Cowboys fan, I wouldn't even want Romo to come back. I mean, he's just going to end up getting hurt anyway, and you might ruin your mojo that you've had with your rookie quarterback.
Besides, who's going to be the quarterback of the Browns next year if it's not Tony Romo?
You know what? I didn't even think of that, but you could probably add him to the long list.
They'll need him.
How about that? I mean, Kessler gets hurt for them. I mean, it's unbelievable what they go through. I mean, it really is. But
Charlie Whitehurst, I thought he retired in the 80s.
I know, right.
What the hell, man?
But to bring it back to the Ravens, I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, the Giants. I mean, they kind of, sort of hung in there a little bit with the Packers on Sunday night. But I don't think anyone who watched that game looked at the final score 23-16 and thought that was truly indicative of how it went.
Dude, Bobby Rainey's running around, getting 22 yards on the ground for the Giants, right?
Yeah.
That's where they are.
Well, it sounds like they should get Rashad Jennings back next week. I think he's on one of my fantasy football teams, so that's the only reason I've heard that at this point. But
it's gonna be interesting to see Jimmy Smith push Odell Beckham around, right?
Well, we'll see how that would play out. I mean, certainly Odell Beckham, has talked a lot about the fun being gone. I know. Caught the touchdown last night, and
he's still fun. I've seen his hair. Come on.
Yeah. Well, he's still a tremendous talent. There's no doubt, despite the fact that the numbers haven't been overwhelming by any means. But that's a team that's desperate. I mean, they started out 2-0. A team kind of in a similar position as the Ravens in terms of trying to show that they're for real as a playoff contender. Now they've lost 3 in a row. So this is really one of those games. I mean, think about it. The Ravens lose. They fall to 3-3. Their 3-0 start's completely gone. Or the Giants lose and they fall to 2-4. And looking at the way that Philadelphia and to their credit, give them Dallas and even Washington, they'd be falling in a big hole in the NFC East. So this isn't must win for either of these teams just yet. If we're being realistic about what must win actually means and not just tossing it out there because that's what we always say. But this is a game that both these teams would really, really like to have, knowing how their seasons are trending right now. So, I mean, the Giants are struggling, and as you mentioned, the Jets, they can't get out of their own way at this point. A team that's going nowhere fast, but, a team that a lot of people thought would at least be decent, at least be a playoff contender, but it clearly hasn't worked out that way as they've fallen to 1-4.
And Rex Ryan has resurrected Bills fever in Western New York.
How about that? Yeah, I mean, as much as so many people, I know I was in that group. I was ready to just bury Buffalo, kind of laughed at the fact that they fired their offensive coordinator after 2 games and, saying that, that wasn't the problem and wondering how long Rex was going to last. And lots of people were talking about the tough stretch that they had. And lo and behold, they've won 3 in a row. And, I don't think they're going to seriously challenge New England, despite the fact that they were able to shut them out with Tom Brady's, serving his final game of the suspension. But, that's a team that the way they're looking right now, they certainly look like they're in the hunt for a wild card spot at least. So
they get a shot at Tommy 3 weeks from now again, right?
Yeah,
they go to Buffalo.
Be interesting. I have a feeling that one won't go quite the same way. Just a hunch, but speaking of that, I mean, as much as we hate the Patriots around these parts, how about Tom Brady comes back and throws for 400 yards, like he never left.
Well, it was the Cleveland Browns, and it's not like he was coming back from an injury. Other than the only thing that was hurt for him was his feelings, right?
No doubt. That was a nice preseason game.
And I think Giselle took care of that part of it. So,
but it's still pretty impressive to come back and not really look like you missed much of a beat. I mean, it's just love him or hate him, and plenty of us hate him around here. But it's something you still look at and just have to say, wow, it's pretty impressive, even if it is against the lowly Browns.
I want to talk baseball with you for a minute. I also want to plug Alan McCallum spent some time with me. You can check that out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault for some Orioles stuff. Not so much on the Orioles, although they'll pick up the pieces and we'll get back to them. But just in between all of the football over the weekend and the Terps losing on Saturday afternoon, sort of back-to-back baseball and rainouts and games being moved all over the place from the storm. And, I mean, the weather wasn't even all that great at the Ravens game on Sunday with the wind and whatnot. But Toronto has been a juggernaut. Chicago looks like all that they've been advertised to be. And, in the other side, the Red Sox, it's been shocking how good the Indians have been, but how quiet the Red Sox were over the weekend before the rain came and really maybe you just pushed their season along a day.
Yeah, you wonder if it delayed the inevitable, or maybe that's what they needed to kind of just really catch their breath, get an extra day off, and
you got to win 3 in a row. It's tough sledding right now for any of these.
I mean, it's tough, but it's certainly it's not it's not impossible. I mean, everyone. I'm sure Red Sox fans are citing 2004 when they came back from down 3-0 to win the ALCS. But I mean, Cleveland, as much as people have overlooked that team all year. They've pitched so well, and I realize they have some injuries in their rotation, but even with the couple injuries that they've sustained, that's still a pretty darn good starting rotation. And, the thing that everyone has overlooked, and we even talked about this when the Orioles swept them back in July, that really fun series, one of the few highlights of the second half, really, for the Orioles. But they score runs. I mean, that offense does not impress you in the same way that when you look at Boston or Toronto or even a team like the Orioles on paper, not how they perform notwithstanding in the second half. But that Cleveland team scored. They scored with the best of them, other than Boston, who scored more runs than everyone.
And they have more rallies than home runs, right? I mean, they're moving guys around.
They have guys who have quality at bats, and I mean, it's not as though they do a ton of base stealing, bunting, and that. They just have guys. They have a bunch of, for lack of a better term, professional hitters. And I love their shortstop Lindor. He's one of the most underrated players in the game. I mean, he is a terrific player.
I agree wholeheartedly. He's one of my favorite players to watch.
Yeah, I mean, so many people talk about Correa and some of the other young shortstops, and rightfully so, but he's someone who gets overlooked. He's a terrific player. But, I mean, that's a team that, there was no fluke about them winning. They had a plus 100 run differential. They won their division by 8 games. They won 94 games. They didn't score as many runs as the Red Sox, but they scored more runs than, I believe, everyone else in the American League. So, it's not as though that offense can't score runs. And, I mean, you look at the Red Sox, hey, Porcello doesn't come through. David Price, again in the postseason, doesn't come through. I mean, they're paying both those guys very handsomely to come through, and they didn't
pitch
do
these
it.
games, quite frankly, right?
So it's going to be really interesting. You mentioned Toronto. I mean, I was talking. I don't know if I said this to you, but I was talking to someone early last week before the wild card game, and I said because of Texas's profile, because they had won all these one-run games, the run differential was plus 8 on the season, which is pretty amazing for a team that won 95 games. I said at the time, not that I'd predict it, but I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if either Toronto or the Orioles would sweep them. And it ended up being the Blue Jays who, give them a lot of credit. I mean, the bats come alive and they pitched. So a really impressive performance from them. So, we'll see whether they're taking on Cleveland or Boston. And then in the National League, as you said, Cubs, I mean, looking forward to the Game 3 pitching performance, pitching matchup, no doubt. But Cubs are in control there, and got to give the Nats credit. They get the big home run, and they even up that series at a game apiece on Sunday. So looking forward to seeing how the rest of that series plays out as well. But definitely, as it relates to the Orioles, you look at what Toronto did and kind of just adds to the frustration of what happened last Tuesday night.
He is Luke Jones. You can find him at Baltimore Luke on Twitter, as well as Luke at WNST.net. He's going to be on the backfields at Owings Mills beginning Wednesday for Ravens practice as we get ready for the Giants game on Sunday. We do have some seats left on our Giants bus. If you want to join us on Sunday, toss me an email, nasty at WNST.net, or you can buy the trip directly at WNST.net. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as on our YouTube, WNST TV channel. Our morning newspaper lights up your email inbox at 7 a.m. every morning. That's brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And anything you miss, you can find in the Buy a Toyota audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. You can also download the TuneIn Radio app and listen live from wherever you happen to be. CJ Mosley is going to join us on Tuesday night at Buffalo Wild Wings in Owings Mills, our little home away from home. We're there every Monday night for best seat in the house, as well as our wing eating competition. This Tuesday, join CJ Mosley on behalf of There Goes My Hero. We're going to have a little chat with him. Obviously, the reach for the touchdown will be part of the topicality, but we like talking to CJ anytime, and he's a good man. He'll come out on Tuesday night and say hello. Last but never least, if there's any breaking news, anything weird happens in the Orioles kingdom or the Ravens kingdom or injuries all week long, all those reports come to you first via the WNST text service. It is our breaking news service. It is free. It is easy to sign up at WNST.net. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and Dennis Kolotzis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.